When I was living in Hot Springs around the age of 8, 9, 10, I went to a place called Jones Elementary. And I remember fourth grade class just doing a regular test. There were kids who were lined up turning in their tests. And I looked up, and there was a girl standing on the other side of the teacher. The girl was dressed in a dress that was obviously a burlap potato sack. It actually had the potato logo and everything on it, and didn't think too much about it, except I looked down, looked back, and she was gone. But the thing is, she was standing in between the teacher and a chalkboard, so it would be obvious if she walked on the other side. I didn't think too much about it until a couple of years later. I was talking to my grandmother, and she mentioned that during the Depression, that they used to make clothing out of burlap potato sacks and other potato sacks. I lived in a house on a street in Hot Springs called Centerview, and my room was always icy cold no matter how hot it was in the rest of the house. So because I had an attic directly above my bed, I always felt uncomfortable. So I would, if I did go in the room, I'd run and jump on the bed. And it just felt like you were being watched. It got to the point where I was so uncomfortable, I just decided not to sleep in there at all. So I'd be found by my mom asleep on the couch in the living room. And then, then I started sleeping in the same room as my mom, and she would wake me up in the middle of the night, and you could clearly hear someone walking around in my room, which was right on the other side of the wall. In fact, twice she called the police, and police came and cleared the house, didn't find anything. But she used to always think that the place was. When I was living in Chicago, I was getting ready to move to Los Angeles. I had a friend who lived on the southwest side of the city who invited me over. We were going to go out. We had Italian food, and then rented some movies, and watched that, talked till about 2 o'clock in the morning. Basically, she went to bed. I slept on the futon in her living room, very narrow room. It was a house that was built in the mid 1800s. And I was laying on the couch, was watching Fight Club, which was playing on the DVD player or video player. I can't remember. It was early 2000s. I had my arm over my eyes, and real close to my face, I heard, "Hey," really loudly. My whole body locked up, and I ended up rolling off of the futon onto the floor. I couldn't sleep the rest of the night. So eventually, I just decided I was going to continue watching movies. About 5:30 in the morning, I started to hear her door open, and the door was flush with the wall that I was laying against. And so I thought the TV was too loud. I apologized, turned the volume down. She never came out, but she slammed the door, and I just thought I'd pissed her off. About an hour later, I heard her get out of bed, but I could hear every movement that she was making in terms of hearing the mattress, hearing the headboard hit up against the wall, her feet hitting the hardwood floors, walking across the room, opening the door. And that's when I realized that it wasn't her that opened the door. And she told me that actually, when that door slammed, that woke her up, and she thought that I was coming to peek to see if she was awake at that time. So those were my experiences before I ever started investigating. My favorite place was probably the Malco, but I would have to be more specific, the basement next door to the Malco, and also the area above the Malco, which they say was the Princess Theater. They say it was the Princess Hotel because it used to be the Princess Theater. I did some research. I couldn't find anything on a Princess Hotel, but I'm just going by word of mouth. Of course, a lot of history is word of mouth at this point for a lot of areas. And the reason that those two areas, I've never gotten so much activity that we were able to record, like just consistently up in the what they say was the Princess Hotel. I was away from everybody else. I started recording and I got a voice that was so clear. It literally just sounded like another person standing right there talking right next to me. When we were down in the basement of the area next to the Malco, we got so much stuff that just kept on popping. We had a spirit box going. At one point, it told me, do you want to drink? A woman's voice came through saying, do you want to drink? Well, of course, this was an area that was used for drinking during Prohibition era. And then also, I stood next to a chair. I had my upper body turned to the side saying, what object is directly in front of me? And it said rope. And there was no rope. I was just trying to get it to say chair. And then a camera guy that we had with us, he looked down and he's like, look between your feet. And there was a coil of rope directly between my feet underneath some paper. So a lot of that was uncanny. And of course, it's not something I was paying any attention to at all, but it's all stuff that we were able to record. Well, another favorite investigation was the Arkansas State Capitol building, which, you know, there's a history to it. And of course, we were only going by the fact that the overnight security that works there, Capitol Police, were telling us that there was a lot of activity that was going on. In fact, they're the ones who invited us to investigate. When we did go to investigate, things started up very fast. In fact, we walked in, we had a team member named Blake. He walked in, was looking around, and his hat, he said, had fallen off, or had fallen off his head. Then we were able to find out that Capitol Security had all of that on camera. They couldn't give us the footage because, of course, it would give away where a camera was in there. So, but we were able to watch it. And when he said that his hat fell off, it didn't fall off in a traditional way. It actually, as he was looking up, it came over the front of his head. So it crawled up over his head. And you could see all that footage. And then right after that, Michelle happened to be recording him on her phone. And he still has his hat in his hand, looking around, trying to figure everything out. And through the halls of the Capitol, you literally hear a voice say, "Leave." And it just echoes through the whole building and everything. And of course, we didn't hear that. It was just caught on camera. And yeah, we had a lot of stuff. At one point, Michelle kept on talking about hearing a woman screaming. We heard it a few times after that. Eventually, Lauren, who is a camera operator for us, she was setting up for a shot and she actually caught it on camera. So it was kind of nice to get that validation after, you know, so many times of hearing about it and then hearing it with your own ears and then eventually capturing it as evidence. So yeah, it was a pretty incredible investigation.